Welcome to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast, your trusted source for simple strategies to improve your mental and physical fitness. Throughout this podcast, we will discuss how you can manage your mental health by practicing mental fitness, building emotional resilience and curiosity to handle life's challenges. We'll also highlight the crucial link between physical fitness and your overall mental well-being. My name is DJ Ligori, and I want you to realize that you are not alone with this challenge. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and welcome to today's episode.
Now you can hear me. All right, sweet. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. We are on episode number 122, and my name is DJ Ligori. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I'm going to talk about one of our greatest fears today, and my goal is to help us alleviate a little bit of that fear by changing the way that we really think about this fear. And so I can't remember where I saw this. I don't know if I heard this on a podcast or I read it in an email, but I remember somebody saying, I hate the idea that someone out there doesn't like me. And I think this is very relatable because I think we all want to be liked. I think that is in our human nature, because if we weren't liked, we were isolated back in the day. And then because of that, we were in more danger for that saber-toothed tiger to attack us and kill us. So we wanted to be liked and we wanted to be part of the community. Well, we still have that same feeling today. About 5 years ago, I would say it was about 5 years ago, I had a friend of mine tell me this really funny story, really interesting story that really hammers home this point. She said, hey, Deej, I was at a bar last weekend, and these two guys I was with said that they knew you, and they were talking some pretty heavy shit about you. And I was like, really? I was like, well, what were they saying? And she told me what they were saying. And she then proceeded to tell me how she defended me because she knew me on a deeper level than these guys did. And I said, I'm really appreciative that you decided to defend me. And I think that's really cool that you defended my honor because, we know each other better than these guys do. Yet you don't need to do that. And she was kind of surprised. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I don't need to be liked by them. I said, if they don't know me and they don't like me for the things that I stand for, and they haven't taken the time to actually get to know me and why I actually like those things, that's okay. I was like, just let them go. I was like, it doesn't really matter to me. I said, if it matters to you, you can keep doing it. Yet I'm giving you the okay to just let it go, right? That's okay. That's part of this whole experience of life. Is there's probably going to be people that don't really like us. And she was kind of taken back, and she's like, okay. She's like, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I did that. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool. So I think the interesting thing here is actually wrapping our head around the idea that there are people out there that don't believe what we believe and vice versa. And in turn, they might not actually like us. They might not like the way that we talk. They might not like the things that we post on social media. They might not like our energy and our natural vibe. And that's okay. Now, I'm saying that as somebody who it's taken me a really long time to kind of get to that point, because I always did want people to like me. And still to this day, do I want people to like me? Of course I do. I think that is a very natural human thing. Yet, what happens when we find out that somebody doesn't like me, like us? What is our next action? And I think a lot of us, we might go down this path of, okay, what's wrong with me? Or what do I have to do to now get them to like me? Which then ultimately gives them the control over us, very similar to kind of what we talked about last week, and how when we let people bother us, we are ultimately giving them the control over us, even when they're doing things that we don't necessarily agree with, right? So there are things that I believe that other people probably don't believe, and vice versa, right? I remember talking about when I did a podcast on the dad bod. And I'm a very firm believer that you are in control of the way that you look, the way that you physically look, by the food that you decide to put into your mouth, the exercise that you decide to provide for your body, the sleep that you decide to provide for your body, and the water in your water intake. I think those four things are going to determine the way that you look. Yes, I understand that genetics does play a role in that. And I think you can overcome a lot of that with really harnessing on those four factors. I believe that we choose to hold on to stress and anxiety that can be managed and can be overcome through mental fitness. And we hold on to that stress and anxiety as a form of significance to show people that we have things going on and we are important. I believe that we stay in toxic relationships because it's familiar and it's comforting because it helps us realize that at least someone likes us and we are not alone. So I'm just going to stay in this shitty relationship. Those are things that I believe in that other people might have a completely different viewpoint on, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm right or I'm wrong, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are right or they are wrong. It's just what we think is the truth. And so if someone doesn't like you, do we really need to go and get their approval by changing our behavior or changing a belief or a value that we have even in order to get one more person on our team? And I think there's a lot of inner workings around like your self-confidence and your self-image and how are you perceiving yourself? Like, are you somebody who needs other people to like you? Or are you somebody who's okay with merely liking yourself and being appreciative of what you bring to the table, even if it isn't necessarily accepted by others, right? Like, are you okay with who you are? And Carl Bryan is actually he's a mentor of mine who I study a lot. I read his emails every day. Fantastic, fantastic email writer. And he wrote a email once that said, when he hears that someone doesn't like him, he asks himself, do I even like them? Like, do I even actually want them to like me? Like, do I actually even care? And I think that's a really interesting point to actually flip the switch on it and basically say, all right, if I find out somebody doesn't like me, it's like, all right, do I even like them? Right? Like vice versa. Right. So if you do like them, like if you do want your approval, that's where I think we can possibly change the way that we act in order to get this person's approval. Right. That's where we could possibly go. If you don't like them, then it's a win-win. Right. It's kind of like the scene in A Bronx Tale when Sonny was talking with Calogero, C, and C had a guy who owed him like $20, and Sonny was like, hey, you don't chase after that $20. That guy's out of your life for the rest of your life, and you only had to pay $20. He's like, you got off easy, right? So it's kind of like, all right, if they don't like me and I don't like me, I got off easy, right? Great, we don't ever have to talk again. That's cool, right? And that's like the way that we can handle it. Yet, if we really do want that approval from everybody else, then that could cause us some stress and that could cause us some tension. And I do think that there is a very, very important piece to understand about us not having to gel with everybody. Like we don't have to be on everybody's team. And I actually recommend that we aren't on everybody's team. And here's why. Because if we're everywhere, we're nowhere. If we're constantly trying to be accepted by this group, by this tribe, by this community, and changing our beliefs and our behaviors and our actions to constantly fit in at all these different little puzzle pieces, we're going to be everywhere and we're actually going to be nowhere because we're going to lose ourselves amongst that exhausting practice of trying to fit in everywhere. So when someone doesn't like you, is it a possibility that the reason that they actually don't like you is because you are exposing an insecurity or a fragile spot within them? And they don't like you because you are making them feel a scary and uncomfortable emotion that they aren't necessarily ready to face, right? I want to just be completely transparent there. Maybe they're not ready to face that. And that's why they don't like you. And they're associating you as almost like a trigger to them. So that could be something interesting, right? So I think that it's important to realize too that I had a podcast once about strong opinions loosely held, and this was a concept I learned from Nick Bare and Thomas DeLauer on the Nick Bare podcast. Might be the BPN podcast, same thing. They were talking about how they had their own opinions and their own ideas about things, yet they were loosely held, which meant that if there was other information that came in, they could possibly change the way that they thought about that idea. Their belief could change. And I completely agree with that. I remember when we had first gotten into Acres of Diamonds, we had a module on toughness. And I had this belief that there was only a thing as mental toughness. There was no thing as physical toughness. And we had a client of ours walk us through this really elaborate idea of like, here's what physical toughness is, here's what mental toughness is. And we basically came to this conclusion that, all right, maybe it's just a toughness in and of itself. It's just toughness. There is no compartments of physical and mental. So that was an opinion that, luckily enough, I was okay with loosely holding it, and I changed it to this idea of just being one toughness. I remember when I learned about toxic positivity, and in the beginning days of learning about mental fitness, I was always like, yeah, try to stay positive with this. When shit happens, stay positive. I was like, how the hell are we supposed to stay positive when I fail a test, or when somebody I love passes away, or when I break up with my significant other? How do I stay positive? Right. And that was ultimately the toxic positivity. And I needed some additional coaching on that. When I had that strong opinion, I realized I needed to loosely hold on to this. And then I went to feeling the emotion, understanding it, learning from it, and then, and then deciding when we are ready to actually move into a possible positive thought pattern. So I encourage anyone on any of the posts that I ever put out, social media wise, of whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or anything, TikTok, comment on the stuff that I'm putting out and help me learn more things, right? Because my goal is to help you guys, whoever listens to this, gain some different perspectives. Today, we're talking about not being liked by others. I think this is a very common fear that a lot of us do experience. And so I actively encourage people to basically say, hey, have you thought about this idea? Right? Have you considered this perspective or this opinion? Because I think the way that we learn is kind of like, I almost think it's like this giant circle, and there's holes. There's thousands and millions of holes within the circle. And all we're trying to do is just plug those holes. And they come at random times, and they are different perspectives, different pieces of awareness. And we're just trying to plug up all of these holes and fill our blind spots, because nobody knows everything. And the more we actually do figure out, the more we realize just how little we know. And so I want to end this podcast today with this disclaimer too of, I don't hate anyone and I don't not like anyone. There are people that I like and there are people that I love. And if you're not in one of those categories, you're just not even on my radar. Right? I'm just not going to give you any energy. I'm working towards being okay with, yeah, they're just not part of my community. They're not part of my tribe, and that's okay. Right? I'm not going to say, no, I don't like you. I think you're a piece of shit. I don't agree with X, Y, and Z. That's okay, right? I don't need to give you that much attention and that much focus, not even on the radar. Right? And that's something that I encourage people to kind of think about, is how much time do we give those people who actually piss us off and bother us? Right? Because ultimately that is a decision that we are making. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 122 today. It's okay if somebody out there does not like you. It's actually more encouraged, right? So we don't have to conform to everybody. We find our tribe. We find those 5 to 10 people who truly get us, that love us for all of our flaws, all of our insecurities, and all of the things that are truly authentic and genuine to who we are. And those are the people that you vibe with. And that's really it, right? I mean, that's just what I think, right? That's what I think. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right, or doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. You could agree, you could disagree. That's completely okay. So if you guys like this episode, kindly appreciate a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. You can rate it on Spotify, or you can leave a comment too on YouTube. We upload all of these to YouTube as well. And if you want to sign up for the free mental fitness tips, as always, yourdailydiamonds.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning into episode number 122 today. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. If you received something interesting from today's episode, we would kindly appreciate if you could leave us a rating or review, or even share this podcast with someone you believe needs to hear its message. The Libraries and Weight Rooms brand is a division of our parent company, Acres of Diamonds, where we are on a mission to end mental suffering through mental fitness. If you would like to learn more about our mission and support this cause, please visit our website at www.youracresofdiamonds.com. Take care, keep leading, and we will talk to you soon.